So now we are going to make wooden bark texture using fondant and then wafer paper. Now this is going to have cracks and then that wooden bark is going to get realistic. We are not going to make with Dresden tool trying to create the texture on the fondant, but have another sheet of wafer paper on the fondant and then roll it out. So it is going to make the wooden bark look very realistic. So I have the wafer paper, the simple thin one is enough, okay, and brown fondant, and I'm going to use this texture to just cover the board to just for us to understand and learn the technique, and then you could use that to panel around on the cake, but then I'm going to use it on the board, so you could also do that to cover the board. So you can use that technique wherever you want to put it on the cake, okay. And then what I have here is the potion. So the recipe of the potion you could use and then make this, and this is what I'm going to use to brush and then color up to stick also the wafer paper on the fondant, and obviously brown gel color I'm going to use because we're just going to have the bark in brown, and some cornflour which I'm going to dust and show, right. So let me start with the brown fondant. I'm going to dust the surface. You want it thick because after placing the wafer paper we will be rolling it again, and that will be the actual thickness. Okay, so you can see it is quite thick, but then it's going to be thick on the edge, but then you just need to feel the inside is also as thick, okay. So then on this I'm going to add just half of the portion into this bowl, because you could just save this up for later where you don't want to use it in brown color. And then just add the drops of brown in the portion and mix this up. Just going to keep the fondant layer here and then brush. I just want it a little more darker in color, and to add in more gel color here. So now once it's brushed fully, I'm going to place the wafer paper. Now have the textured side up, even otherwise it doesn't matter so much. Just stick it all around. And I'm just going to have another layer of the color brushed over on top. So once the color is brushed, you want to have the cornflour dusted all over. I'm just going to start rolling this out. Now you want the wafer paper to just crack open. Now there is moisture underneath, so it could just get sticky. So now in that case, just dust in a little more of cornflour over this. Just try not to expand the cracks that are forming. You could just open out using your fingers. So now as I see the wet color, the portion that is just starting to show up, I'm going to dust some more cornflour on top. And I'm just going to roll again. So as you can see, the cracks are opening up. Now that I need to cover the board, if you're going to use these as panels, like you're going to cut them out and then use them as panels, just dust off the cornflour. You just roll them in one direction, so you have the cracks opening up in one direction only, and then you could just cut them out into strips, so you could place them on the sides of the cake. Now that I'm going to use it on the cake board. I'm going to just roll it out on this direction as well a bit. So I have the board covered. So now I'm just going to get the board, and whenever you have a fondant that needs to be covered on the board, you just use shortening, not too much, but a like very thin layer. And then I'm just going to lift this then I'm going to look for the size and then just roll it up so it fits the board. Just going to go around and then cut. So this you could just save it up because there is some part of wafer paper is stuck, but then this is going to come in really very handy when you have to do a rough stone texture, because the bits of wafer paper is just going to be combined in this, and don't rush it. It comes in really good for making textures. You could just roll it up and then work on it further to give a rough stone texture. Okay, so just it's going to be saved up to be used later. So now I'm just going to go in and then cut around. I'm going to brush off the cornflour. So you can further work on it to just go and to make it a little more natural, go near and to the edges of the cracked out wafer paper on the edge, just lift them out so it looks like the bark is just coming out, is just peeling itself out from the tree. Okay, so you could do that. You can see where this portion is, it looks like the bark is lifted. Now you could just work on it a little more to lift up a few areas, where then you can see at these points where I've just lifted, it looks like the bark is actually opening up from the trees. I've just made it to few areas alone to just show you. You could further work on a bit more to get the texture popping out a little bit, but this is the final look of the wooden bark. But obviously for the panels, you can cut it out to put it on the sides of the cake. However, like I said, this is a good technique to cover the cake depending on the theme you are going to make. So see you in another interesting technique in the next lesson.